How we doing here, guys?
Living the dream.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Being that it's 7:01, we will call this meeting to order. And if the clerk could please read the sunshine law.
Let the minutes show that adequate notice of this meeting as required by Public Law 1975, Chapter 231 has been provided by the annual notice, which has been posted on the bulletin board filed with the Borough Clerk and has been sent to the Asbury Park Press, the Independent, the Star Ledger, and the Two River Times. In addition, the fact that this meeting is being held via teleconference was also posted on the bulletin board, the Borough website, filed with the Borough Clerk, and sent to the Asbury Park Press and Star Ledger.
Thank you. Can we please have a roll call?
Councilmember Cooper? Councilmember Katopoulos?
Here.
Councilmember Good?
Here.
Councilmember McDermott? Councilmember Pacheco?
Here.
Councilmember Sheridan?
Here.
Mayor Kennedy?
Here. As a courtesy to those around you, if you could all hit your mute button instead of silencing your cell phone, that would be greatly appreciated. A little different of our greeting on our agenda there. And for those that have a flag nearby or want to pull one up on your phone, if we could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America,
and
to the republic for the God,
Tonight we're going to have 2 moments of silence. Our first moment of silence is dedicated to all front-of-the-line people from police, EMTs, firefighters, nurses, doctors, support staff keeping things safe at those hospitals and behind the scenes, such as including our DPW and our borough staff who are all deemed essential personnel. If we could please have a moment of silence as they all continue to work. Thank you. Our second moment of silence will be in honor of New Jersey residents and people around the globe who have lost their lives due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you. We're here tonight to conduct our regularly scheduled council meeting, albeit in a different format. We are aware that many daily adjustments Keyport residents and business owners have had to make in the height of an unprecedented time. And I would like to commend the efforts everyone has made to help with the efforts to lower the curve of the COVID-19 global pandemic. Keyport is no stranger to large-scale emergencies or disasters. In fact, just 4 short years ago tomorrow, our emergency services were fighting the major fire in the downtown business district. And this time, 8 years ago, sections of our waterfront still remain closed after the aftermath of Hurricane Sandy. As we face the current unprecedented times, Keyport is once again uniting in many unique ways to be sure we all get through this together. Several weeks ago, we began the initial stages of starting to set up preparations and plans because we need them. Within a couple weeks of the initial talks, we began implementing several precautionary measures and continue to work daily to work on any measure we think might be needed down the road. This includes closing the Keyport Senior Center and stopping the Skipper bus transportation back on March 13th. The Keyport Library closed to the public 6 days prior to the state requiring all libraries to close. The Keyport School District did a phenomenal job implementing a remote learning plan for all students, pre-K through 12, in hopes it would only be for a couple of weeks. Parents and students alike have truly rose to the occasion to balance the new remote education plan. Daily and sometimes hourly communication occurs with a core team, which includes our interim borough administrator, Tom Henshaw, our police chief, Chief Hackner, our OEM coordinator and first aid chief, Chief Crowley, and myself. Nearly daily conference calls take place with all department heads, the fire chief, Chief Muscatello, and all OEM coordinators. Update emails go out to council members and department heads. Through everyone's efforts, as well as the efforts of Borough Hall employees, we have been able to implement plans to stay ahead of what might be the next phase. We hope each day to not need the next plan, but so far we have had to enact several we never thought we would have to. Many of our employees and volunteers have been taught new initiatives that are all new to several of them, but they have truly put their time and effort into making sure Borough Keyport is able to operate in an efficient manner. We've been in communication with local, county, state, and federal leaders in regards to obtain any pertinent and necessary information we need to stay on top of for the borough. We have planned for large storms, fires, active shooters, but I assure you there isn't a course that exists that can teach our frontline workers and volunteers what they are embracing today. Please keep them in mind when you are trying to make decisions as to whether you are leaving your home for something essential. We are in this together, and we will help in any way we can through this new, but hopefully temporary norm. Now we're going to move on to the consent agenda.
Resolution 13120 is the payment of bills. Resolution 13220 is authorizing emergency temporary appropriation. Resolution 13320 is authorizing execution of the project agreement with Monmouth County for performance and delivery of fiscal year 2018 Community Development Project. That's the Broad Street Sidewalk Improvement Project. Resolution 13420 authorizing execution of certification prohibiting use of excessive force and prohibiting the use of federal funds for lobbying. Resolution 13520, authorizing the borough to enter into a shared service agreement with Keyport Public Schools for the use of school resource officers, special law enforcement officers in the Keyport Public Schools. Resolution 13620, authorizing the extension of an agreement with Government Strategy Group for extended appointment of temporary borough administrator services for an additional term of 3 months for Thomas Henshaw. Resolution 13720 authorizing the appointment of Susan Mulligan as a part-time building maintenance worker. And Resolution 13820 authorizes the retention of grass cutting and lawn maintenance services.
Thank you. Do any members of the council wish to speak on anything before we open to the public on any of the items on the consent agenda?
Ivan, Mayor, just a quick question. This is Councilman Good. On with regard to the grass cutting and lawn maintenance, did we have any other bids besides JPV?
Yes, we did. There was one other.
Did we get a copy of that? I didn't happen. Did I see it? Actually, did we get a copy of it?
I don't think that was included in the agreement. That was attached to the packet that I sent out this afternoon.
Yes.
Councilman, we had 2 bids come in. One was for roughly $20,000, and the other was for roughly $30,000. So we were.
Who was the other bid? Who was the other bidder?
I believe it
Councilman Good, this is Mark Moon. It was Scenic View Landscaping.
Okay. And they came in about 30?
Their grand total for all. Yeah.
Okay. That was it.
Hold on one second. Mark, could you just repeat what you said about the contract? Because we have the microphone close to the phone, but we didn't quite pick up on what that was for the recording.
Oh, Michelle said it. Basically, their grand total, the other bid was $37,270.
And what was the name of that company?
Scenic View Landscaping.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Good, does that satisfy your question?
Oh, yeah, that was it. Thank you very much, Mayor.
No problem. Anyone else have any questions on the consent agenda from the members of the council?
No, it's Councilwoman McDermott. I'm here now.
Okay, thank you. Okay, can I have a motion, state your name and your motion in a second, please?
Sheridan, motion.
Good, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Does anyone oppose? Any members of the public wish to speak on the consent agenda topics only?
Yes. Michael Lane. I had a couple of questions about the consent agenda topics. R-13220, the emergency appropriation. Was there any effort made to scrub this list for expenditures that will not occur because of the shutdown of the, for example, the courts, the senior center, the library, the bus functions, etc.?
All of the operations are still functioning, so we need to be able to continue on with the appropriations in order to pay the personnel.
All right, so we're paying the personnel even when the senior center shut down or the library shut down, etc.?
Correct. They're working on, they're reporting to work every day, and they're working on several projects, and their department heads report to Tom Henshaw what they're working on.
Okay. Just talking about emergency appropriations, has the council given any thought to the property taxes that are going to be due in May in terms of recognizing emergency and postponing when their due date is?
This is Councilman Good. Mr. Lane, I don't think that we can't suspend collections. I mean, the school is going to demand their cut. The county demands their cut. We just would have to go with what we're operating on here, which is a temporary budget with an estimate like you do at the end of, or at least, the fourth quarter each year.
Well,
so
one thought was both the federal and the state government have postponed when taxes are due. Has any thought about talking to the governor about property tax delay? Anyway,
Mr. Lane, this is Sheridan. We've been,
Go ahead, Councilman Sheridan.
Thank you. I've been talking with the CFO about options that we could do with businesses and residents concerning taxes, and we'll continue to go on, but a lot of it has to come from us. We can't just arbitrarily stop taxes at our level. We need to have that done at the state level and higher, but we can offer ideas. And,
I would suggest...
So, actually, to piggyback off of Councilman Sheridan's commentary, when you're saying that the state froze taxes, what they have done is ask the mortgage companies to be understanding with mortgage payments, but they did not, in any of that ruling, ask the mortgage companies not to still continue with the escrow of taxes to come forward to the municipalities. But I'm not saying that may not happen, and I'm sure that's part of why they're probably already going back to the table to write an addendum to the stimulus package so that they can try and assist municipalities if there were anything to come for shortfall on taxes. But at this point in time, there's many people watching all the pieces unfolding. And as far as collection of taxes, I don't think that has stopped at the federal level. What they've done is they extended their deadline on tax returns being due, but not anywhere else are they stopping any property taxes.
That's what I was talking about, extending the deadline. I know a number of my neighbors that are out of work, and so it's kind of tougher.
We're
right.
continuing looking at any option that we can. But at this
That
point in
sounds
time,
good.
we cannot stop municipal taxes.
All right. Resolution 135, shared service agreement with the Keyport Public School. What stimulated that resolution?
This is an extension that we do every year.
Oh, so it's just a normal extension. All right. Thank you. Resolution 130.
Hold on one second. Can I just confirm that with the attorney? That's my understanding of it. Is that not correct, Mr. Moon?
actually, that's not one. I didn't do that one. I don't know who put that one in.
Mayor, this is Councilman Good. This wasn't, we did have this last year. We're just kind of turning it over for the new school year.
Right, okay. That's what I thought. That's how I read it.
All right.
Okay.
So it's just like the budget every year.
Correct.
R138-20, and Dennis, you may remember there was discussion at the Harbor Commission meeting that in the past, expenses for the grass cutting of the parks was charged to the BRIT account. So you might want to think about that as you work the budget problem. That's all I had.
Not only that, Mike, but there was issue with the use of pesticides down at the waterfront as well. We're going to have to, with regards to Harbor Commission, I think they're going to want to discuss the use of pesticides down there with JPD. I just need to know how that'll work logistically. Probably organize that with Tom Henshaw or the administrator.
Now, by pesticides, you mean the grass killers or weed killers?
Yeah, the weed killer, yeah, and pesticides.
Yeah, I'll just mention that the stone walkway by the gazebo is all full of weeds.
Yep.
And so you may have a problem there. All right, thank you for that opportunity to give input.
No problem. In regards to the weeds, I will say that JPV actually reached out about 2 weeks ago inquiring if there was a way that we can extend his contract from last year because he noticed how excessive the weeds were growing throughout the borough because of the higher than normal winter temperatures that we had. But there wasn't any legal way to do that. So we put his bid in, and he's going to have a lot of weeds to clean up in the first couple of weeks once his contract is implemented. So anyone else from the public wish to speak on the consent agenda?
Yes, Elmer J. Graham, Jr., 22 St. Peter's Place.
Hello, Mr. Graham.
Hi, good evening, Council. A couple of things on here. Can you all explain Resolution 13420?
Mr. Graham, this is Mark Moon, the borough attorney. Basically, it's because it's ultimately the funds are coming from the federal government. They have a bunch of requirements that we certify to. One of them is that we prohibit the use of excessive force, and the other is that we prohibit the use of any of the federal funds we're receiving for lobbying activities.
Okay. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, and so we're merely just meeting that requirement by executing the certification, saying we're not going to do either of those things.
All right. And Resolution 13620, can you all explain that?
I can. So last month, last meeting, we adopted a resolution extending Mr. Henshaw's appointment, but keeping in mind that he is an agent of this entity that we had entered into agreement with, so we have to extend the agreement as well as Mr. Henshaw to match up with the extension of Mr. Henshaw's appointment.
Okay, but is there any possible way of finally making him permanent since he is working for that consulting firm?
Can't really get into that, Mr. Graham. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, since he is working for that consulting firm, you all could make him permanent or, be a lot easier for the taxpayers. Thank you and have a nice evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to speak on the consent agenda topic? Can I have a motion to close to the public?
Sheridan, motion
Motion to close. Good. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone?
Oh, you got Mr. Cooper here, too.
Yeah, I've been on.
Hi, Mr. Cooper.
Hi, Mayor.
Councilman Cooper, sorry.
Oh, Lord.
Okay, can I have a motion for approval of the resolutions on the consent agenda?
Motion, McDermott.
Second, Cooper.
Thank you. Can we please have a roll call?
Councilmember Cooper.
Yes.
Councilmember Fitopoulos.
Yes.
Councilmember Good.
Yes.
Councilmember McDermott.
Yes.
And Councilmember Pacheco.
Yes.
And Councilmember Sheridan.
Yes.
Thank you. Next, we have communications by consent, items 1, 2, and 3. Do any council members wish to speak on any of those items before we open it to the public?
Mayor, this is Councilman Good. I think I guess the request for the waterfront and if the Art Society, all of that is going to be subject to any state emergencies. Like if we're still going in May or June, that wedding can't go forward.
Right. Well, it could as long as it's less than 10 people, but if we still have...
No, actually, that is what I was going to bring up later. My understanding, and I would like at least...
Hold on one second. Just to clarify, though, we approved anything on our communications last meeting, too, with the conditions. When the motion was made, it was with conditions of current, regulations. So whoever motions can do that.
No, I was just saying whether or not we're going to continue that. But my question, I guess this is going to Mr. Moon. My understanding of the governor's order is that there are no going out in public, no nothing, no funerals, no weddings, no gatherings. Unless you're out walking and moving along, you shouldn't be out in public unless you're an essential. That means that any gathering, there is no gatherings in public, even if you stay 6 feet apart. And is not my understanding, correct? Because I was looking at the frequently asked questions on the state site, and it was funerals, no gatherings at all. You cannot party, celebrations, weddings, nothing is in public.
Councilman Good, as you're aware, you received the communication that we had for clearance from the state as long as it was 10 people or less to perform a wedding, which would normally be performed indoors, but because public council chambers are closed to the public, we can't do them indoors. So
No, Mayor, I'm sorry. I'm not questioning what happened before. I'm asking for
other weddings reserved as well. All the mayors in New Jersey are facing this right now because people need insurance, so a lot of people need to get married. And as you're aware, you received communication from the state that said as long as it was 10% or less, weddings can continue.
Mayor, I thank you for forwarding that, but that also, again, it didn't look like it took into account the actual, or at least the new orders or anything like that. I'd like a clarification because, and again, there are other issues with gathering. I have, there's problems with getting wills signed and, a whole bunch of other things that are severely impacted. But the way I'm looking at the governor's order, it's, I understand maybe is there a workaround? If yes, if no, I don't know, but I didn't see an exception for, hey, everybody can hang out as long as you are 10 feet, less than 10 people and 6 feet apart.
So Councilman Good, this is Mark Moon. Based on how we proceeded with the last wedding, my recommendation would be to basically get some sort of, if we need to, we can get some clarification from the governor's office. I agree that the reading of the actual text of the order can be read as you're interpreting it. But had it not been for the clarification, I would have agreed. But if we're getting, an okay from the governor's office to proceed with that, I don't see why we can't just proceed in that way, as long as we get sort of the okay from the governor's office to do so.
I'm happy with that. I just want to make sure because, I get people asking, can we have a funeral? And the gathering is no, but, but I would appreciate if we can look into getting a clarification.
They're allowed also, they're good as long as there's 10 people.
Mayor, again, I'm looking at the state's website, and it says that funerals may not take place at this time, period.
I understand. I understand why there's a lot of confusion about it all in the beginning, because in one of his press conferences, he also said that all weddings and funerals are hereby canceled, and that's where a lot of the confusion came in. And that's why we asked clarification about the wedding, but because we also have 2 funeral homes in our borough, we also, my understanding is that it was confirmed that they could have, as long as it's less than 10 people as well.
I would just, it would be great if we can get a clarification because again, I'm looking right at the website now, the frequently asked questions, and it's pretty straightforward. But again, I'm happy as long as we can get a clarification.
Yeah, this is
I can make sense.
This is so wonderful. I agree. We need some clarification because it was also my understanding that from speaking to people that work in the governor's office that there weren't supposed to be no funerals. So just getting clarification sent out to the council would be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else have any commentary from the council members on the items 1 through 3 on the communication? And I have a motion to open to the public for items 1 through 3.
Councilman Good, motion.
Second, Pacheco.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone from the public wish to speak? Oh, sorry, any nays? Anyone from the public wish to speak on items 1 through 3?
Michael Lane, following up on what Councilman Good mentioned about the weddings, it would seem to me that the borough has the need to have a letter of responsibility with the parties getting married, that they will document that they will not have more than 10. And I don't know how you keep the public once they see a wedding going on from gathering.
Well, last
That's
week
my
the storm
comment.
rained, to tell you that much, and being 40 degrees, that there really wasn't much public, but people that were driving by did beat their own.
If I could chime in.
It's not about that writing. It's about moving forward. That's all. It's just about moving forward. What we're going to do.
Right.
So,
And anyone else have any comments from the public? I love the nursery rhyme.
For the record, it's not me.
It's Councilman Cooper, that's mine. I'm just changing the date on my calendar.
Oh, cute. Okay, so if there's no other members of the public wanting to speak on communications 1 through 3, can I please have a motion to close to the public?
Motion.
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Whoever is going to motion for the approvals and receipt and files communications, please include in your motion some kind of commentary, if you wish, of what Councilman Good referenced.
This is Councilman Good. I will make the motion to approve. We're subject to the state's emergency declarations.
Second,
And
sorry.
I was going to say, at least, and the clarification from the governor's office that we can get.
Thank you. And do we have a second?
Second, McDermott. Sorry for speaking up to you, Good.
And we have a roll call.
Councilmember Cooper.
Yes.
Councilmember Fotopoulos.
yes.
Councilmember Good.
Yes.
Councilmember McDermott.
Yes.
Councilmember Pacheco.
Yes.
And Councilmember Sheridan.
Yes.
Thank you. May I please have an approval of the minutes for March 17, 2020 meeting? I would need a motion.
Councilman Good, motion.
Second, Pacheco. Sorry.
Have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Cooper. Councilmember Cooper.
Yes.
Councilmember.
Can you hear me?
Thank you, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Councilmember Fotopoulos.
Yes.
Councilmember Good.
Yes.
Councilmember McDermott.
Yes.
Councilmember Pacheco.
Yes.
Councilmember Sheridan.
Yes.
Thank you. Under new business, we have a topic that came up today, well, last night, and I've spoken with Chief Hafner about it again today. More communication took place this afternoon, and following suit of the press conference today from the governor's office, bringing this up under new business because we were under the impression the governor's office was not wanting people to do things like these drive-by birthday parties and so forth. That communication took place yesterday. But today, the governor's press conference, he actually commended the way that people are trying to do things in a unique way, and as long as we're keeping social distance. So with that, there's been a request from the Recreation Committee for the Easter Bunny to be able to drive on the fire truck, most likely on Saturday, through town. Originally, Chief Hafner and I had communication saying that we didn't know that we would be in favor of that because it really wasn't considered an essential reason to be out on the roads. However, after the commentary today, that's kind of the solution most of the towns are doing right now. So asking council members for their input on whether the Easter bunnies should be allowed to drive around on the fire truck this year.
Hi, Councilwoman McDermott. Just to make sure everyone understands, there will be no candy or egg distribution. The intention was to literally just have them drive by and wave. So there is not going to be any exchange of that kind of interaction. The other thing, so again, based on allowance or not, the intention was to just kind of pick everyone's spirit and have everyone look at it from front of their home, or if not, inside their homes through the windows. Similar to what happens during the Christmas, during the tree lighting ceremony, when Santa and Mrs. Santa comes around town, Mr. and Mrs. Claus, similar to that aspect.
So I'm not opposed to that in spirit, right? I mean, anything that we can do to lift the spirits of the children of the borough and indeed the parents of the borough who are under a good amount of pressure themselves is okay with me. Because, but you know, we can't have like crowds out in front of houses when the Easter Bunny is driving by. That's the only thing, and we have to kind of set an example of, you know, sit on your stoop, or you know, the messaging has to be, in my opinion, the messaging would have to be here. This isn't about, you know, whether or not people are going to get people sick. It's just the notion of having a gathering and possibility of not being able to control it.
This is Councilman Good. So I'm sorry, Mayor, I might have cut out, but did you say that other towns were doing something similar?
Yes.
I was doing it apparently, even though I was told last week that they canceled all of theirs, so I guess they've kind of reconsidered, and this is their compromise. I did not have time to reach out to the Hazlet mayor since I received this communication this afternoon. Apparently Red Bank is doing it. Aberdeen was going to do a reverse egg hunt where they put the eggs on the children's lawn if they signed up for it, but I don't know if that actually took place, but that I definitely was not in favor of, especially children putting that stuff in their mouth. So, but the governor did make reference today to how unique everybody is doing things, birthday parties, you know, driving by and having signs out for people for anniversaries and birthdays and big moments that he called them. So I was actually kind of surprised by that. But that's, you know, that's why I'm bringing it up now, so we can all have a clear understanding of everyone's interpretation.
I mean, I agree with Councilman Zatopoulos. I mean, it's a good idea, but the one concern I do have is going to be that, you know, our firefighters, whoever's driving the truck, I mean, we can't have, obviously, the Easter Bunny, but we can't have, you know, a gathering of the firemen on the truck either. I mean, that just sets bad form. Also, if we're going to have the Easter Bunny, then, you know, there should be some definite limitations onto who's in that truck.
I agree. I actually had an idea, but I didn't want to forward it until we talked about this now. But when I was driving here this evening, I was like, maybe we could even have them out in a pickup truck, have someone drive the pickup truck and have them tow the fireboat behind, and the Easter rabbits in the fireboat, and there's definitely separation between the driver of the truck and the fireboat. So maybe we could try and be unique about it, but I didn't even want to engage in those types of ideas in my brain.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Mayor, Councilman Cooper, we brought this up at the rec meeting, and I had recommended that the department heads, the OEM, the fire, the police, and the VA should coordinate with you as to what their pros and cons are. If they are in line with this, then it's a no-brainer. They can get together and work out a single plan. But if they have some strong oppositions, then we'll kill it. We should kill it right there.
See, Mayor, Councilman Good, I don't think that this is. I think that this is not so much of a democracy on, well, who's willing to take a chance kind of thing. This is, you know, are we as a council and you, Mayor, along with the OEM, going to say, okay, this is what's allowed. You want to do this, it's okay. Not let's figure out something that, you know, everybody is happy with, because we've all seen how let's try to interpret and figure out, you know, where we're happy, and that's why we closed off the waterfront park. It seems that people are willing to do.
It's not the parking lot, not the park.
Well, that is going to bring into a new question of new business, but similarly, it's a question of not so much hey, what are we willing to do, but what are we allowed to do? And I think that,
of course,
again,
that's why I brought it up, right?
That's fine. I'm agreeing with you. That's essentially it.
My concern was that they had no strong opposition with it, and you weren't going to get all this blowback from one agency to the other, saying yes or no, but we're all touch and agree or not touch and agree. That's the only thing I'm saying.
Oh, I agree. Mr. Goodwin, if we can come up with that, hey, we have to do this. We should.
Anyone else have any thoughts on this, council member?
Can I just, is that me echoing? Sorry.
Yeah, everyone's echoing. We could all hit the mute button, but it's hard because we're trying to have a discussion, so I know everyone wants their phone off mute. It's hard, I'm sorry. But I guess if you could, it sounds like everyone else is muted now, so go ahead.
So can I just have, based on the feedback from the police department, and was there any feedback from them, consensus, is this something they would be okay with doing, or was there, what was the feedback from those departments, if we received any?
So, again, this all unfolded today. So the police chief said that in Eatontown they tried to do it, and it blew it back in their face because I guess they missed like 2 kids in the town, and then it became this whole big thing. So for a PR standpoint, he said right now, we could try to reduce any headaches that we could. And he also said that he didn't know that he could justify that it was an essential reason to be out on the roads, and that is the regulatory thing. And then that's when, afterwards, we received information from Becky Kahane, and then the governor's press conference today kind of indicated differently. So I reached out to Chief Muscatella, and he said the same thing. If it's something the borough wants, he could definitely get a driver or two to do it, because they're itching to get out of their house anyway. But he thinks if it's going to cause any issues, they're fine with not doing it. So.
If I could draw Mayor, this is Dennis, if I can draw a contrast between what has been going on in town and what the governor brought up today at the press conference regarding celebration parades around the house. It's a parade of cars that are distant, that are in front of a house. And you know what? I'm more concerned about gathering of people, and if the police chief is considering it as something that isn't in compliance with the necessary or an essential task that might draw out a crowd, I'm in agreement with the police officer, with the police chief, unfortunately. I mean, who the heck wants to shut down the Easter Bunny? Certainly not me.
I agree with you. say that neither chief thought about it as a crowd issue. I mean, because the guidelines will have to say that they'll have to, stay on their porch or whatever, watch from their own property or something. I mean, that'll have to approve that our wording gets out. Obviously, we'll even have the attorney look at it. But at the end of the day, we were leaning towards, we say this was essential. We didn't really think so, but then the press conference today turned all of that. So now it's interpretation, like Councilman Good said. So never did we think we would be having this conversation over an Easter Bunny.
Right, but that's what I'm saying, is what the governor cited is much different than having a parade with people coming out of their houses and gathering. So...
Right, yes.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Sheridan, I don't have a problem with this. If the crowd starts gathering, just don't have it. Just shut it down. Just say, I'm sorry, it's gathering. We can't have that.
Thank you.
Right.
Yeah, this is Victoria. If the chief's concern is not gathering, then I'm inclined to, go with the chief's instinct on this. And if we can pull this off without there being gathering, if we can make the messaging very specific, watching the street, watching the window, then my daughter and I were in a birthday parade the other day, and it was a nice moment to see neighbors without having to get anywhere near them. So I am for it. But yeah, I agree with Councilman Sheridan. If gatherings happen, then we shut it down.
Yep. I just want to kind of the logistics of this. We have some really thin streets and also dead-end streets. We will have kids or people gathering outside of their blocks. So I live on a dead-end street. There's some people who live on dead-end streets. They're not going to be able to, the Easter Bunny's not going to go in front of the house, right? So I just want to kind of put the other side perspective of this. You will have gatherings, but if there's social distancing, then that's acceptable. But I want to make sure we're also conscious of this, that there will be some residencies that will not be passed. And children will go to the corner or something to watch.
So I don't know that we have a resolution for this, but I guess just a straw vote if we're allowed to do that, Mr. Moon. Is any councilmen opposed to us trying to have Mr. Bunny visit the road from the street?
Yeah, I don't believe we need a formal resolution.
All right, hold on. Sorry. I guess we'll do the benefits. Councilman Cooper, Mr. Bunny?
I think that's it.
Councilman Cooper, do you have any issues with the Easter Bunny going in the roadway to past houses?
No.
Councilman Katopoulos?
Repeat the question, Mayor, please.
Do you have any issues with the Easter Bunny in the roadway, pathway?
Yes, it's all around town, right? I heard you say 5,000.
No, past houses. Past them, past by them.
No, just as long as it's social, with regards to what Councilwoman McDermott said, just as long as people are responsible with their social distancing, I'm totally cool.
Okay, Councilman Good?
My concern is that the gatherings are, while the social distancing, it still is, you're still not supposed to be gathering. I mean, even if you stay 6 feet apart, you're still not supposed to be out in public. I mean, unless you're going somewhere or, going for a walk or exercising. But if we're going to have that, then we got to shut it down. If we see that these are if people are standing on a corner, to me, that's, even if they're 6 feet apart, that's not, that's against what the governor's trying to do.
I have a suggestion.
That being said, hold on, Doug. That being said, I'm okay with it, but if we see that this is happening, then you have to be quick to shut it down. And we're going to be relying upon whoever is driving the fire truck, and with the also understanding that there shouldn't be a lot of firemen riding that truck.
No, I agree on that. And perhaps, Councilwoman McDermott and Councilman Cooper, could maybe they do something where people have to sign up for the Easter Bunny to drive by their home, and then that way they know what roads they're going to have to go down, and those people can be outside their house.
I like that idea. I was going to
I
say,
like that one too.
I think that's a good idea, and I think that one of the caveats is that families need to remain in their yards. How's that?
And, maybe if the fire truck is too big to get down some of the streets, that's where I was saying, maybe we do it with a pickup truck with the boat trailer behind it, and the Easter Bunny's in a boat, and we could be unique, right? So I'm saying maybe we can work around that, and what is everyone's suggestion? Councilman,
it's McDermott.
Hold on one second, please. Councilwoman Pacheco, you have a young child, so would that be something like you would like, okay, yeah, I'll sign up, and then the fire truck can drive by my house?
I mean, frankly, I'm probably one that has to start that couldn't drive by.
I didn't see that, I'm sorry.
But I still think that if there's a way to logistically figure this out, then we should try to do it.
Right. Okay. So, okay. Sorry, Councilwoman McDermott, go ahead.
It's just logistics. It is Tuesday. If this is going to it's going to happen on Saturday. That might be a little short notice for the sign up. But we can do a Facebook event. I mean, we could do some quick signage. It may not be the full.
Let's see. We said there was free ice cream at the waterfront. That word would get around quick.
Okay.
I think the kids are probably getting tired of being tied to the house, so it'll break up the monotony a little bit.
Right. So we were kind of unofficially doing a roll call. Councilwoman Pacheco, you see the jurist. Do you have any other commentary before we go to Councilman Sheridan?
No.
Councilman Sheridan?
Nope, I'm good. I like it.
Okay. Councilman Good, you referenced that you had another new business item to bring up?
Yes, Mayor. My understanding is that today the governor closed the state parks. I thought that it was absolutely appropriate of us to close or block off the parking lots. But I'm wondering whether or not we should, follow the lead and also, to an extent, close our parks. I was walking the other day and down by Veterans Park, and there was a group that's sitting. I think they were kids, and I feel very old by saying kids, that they were sitting 6 feet apart, but again, to me, that's not hey, stay home and don't leave unless you are going for a walk. Like, you shouldn't be, if you're outside, you should be walking. There should not be standing, I guess, is for a really bad thing. So that's what I wanted to bring up, is whether or not we should, basically close off everything.
So if I could just comment on that, so the shutting down the parking lots was the charge because it became almost like a music festival down there last weekend as soon as the sun came out. So, and a lot of people were just thinking it was a parking lot party, including some open alcohol containers and so forth.
Oh, I agree. I agree with that. I think that was the right move.
So that decision was supposed to be implemented the next day, but things were unfolding so quickly that the police had to do it on the spot, right? So my point is things are changing literally by the hour at some point. But the state guidelines today, and in his press conference, he said that it was state and county parks were being closed, and that all municipal parks were up to each municipality, but that people were not to leave. If their municipal parks were closed, they are not to leave their municipality to go to another town that are open. Now, that's not part and stated in his resolution today, but he did reference that. So the other thing is that the signage was sent over to the printer today that's going to be posted at the entrance of all parks. Mark Moon helped with the wording on that. So the top of the sign is going to state resolution. I'm sorry. What's the word I want right now? Resolution. Executive Order 107 of no gatherings allowed. And that way it's posted in every park. And then underneath that it's going to say that all railings, benches, and tables are not to be considered sanitized when people are entering at their own risk. So that signage and verbiage got approved by the attorneys as well as our JIF insurance. company. So, and Councilman Papopoulos helped us design, we changed it a little bit, about the fishing on the promenade, so that's all announced. The other thing is Monmouth County assisted yesterday because we just didn't have the appropriate things to close off the boat ramp parking lot because the small cones were blew away eventually. So Monmouth County brought us barrels, and the Hazlet Township sign department lent us the signs so that we could keep one row open in fireman's lot, mailbox, as well as 5 spots for Mike Stubbs. But people yesterday already moved all the barrels in Fireman's Park and kept trying to put boats out, as well as move the barrels to park. So we added signage requests today to put in all the parking lots about them being closed until further notice. So we're hoping and praying that, moving forward, that we can keep our parks open. I have an email into Freeholder Director Arnone because the Henry Hudson Trail is technically part of Monmouth County Park System. So I asked for guidance for him on that, if he can, rope off all the entrances or not, or do they need signs put up or what have you. So then that leads us to other discussions that we've had, which were to whether we tarp the tables. But there's just so much that our DPW can keep doing. One of the other things we did is we moved all the benches off of the promenade to widen the width of the promenade. I went out on Saturday morning with a tape measure, and each panel of the promenade from the railing to the grass is 5 foot, so the depth of the promenade is 15 foot. And so we made it add signs that say stay to the right, and that's why we eliminated fishing on the promenade so that people aren't trying to fish and walk next to each other. And we're monitoring the fishing pier, and if people don't adhere to that social distancing, then we could shut the fishing pier too. But we also believe that mental health is part of all of this as well, and we do believe that people have to get out of the house. And yes, some people have yards, but we also have a lot of apartment complexes that they don't really have anywhere to get fresh air from. So I think we're monitoring it. Our hope is that we can leave it open with these new revisions, but hopefully we don't have to close the parks down. But I think it may come to that if it's not manageable.
Do we have those concrete barriers? The ones that do the highway dividing?
Jersey barriers, and that's what I actually had reached out to the county to ask for, but Bob Cushman and Chief Hafner did not want to utilize them, and they requested the barrels instead, and the county donated them to us to use until this is over.
Oh, what was the reason for not using, I was thinking more specifically at the boat ramp.
That's where I wanted it placed, but we also have to keep in mind that we are deemed through whatever waterways as a municipal emergency boat ramp for a water rescue, so we would have to get the fire boat out if we had to. But I thought about closing it off with Jersey barriers and then a chain in between, but they wanted to start with the barrels and see if that worked.
No, that was a good reason. Thank you.
I actually asked them if they had the 2 different types of Jersey barriers. There's concrete ones, and then there's kinds that you fill with water, and you just use them when you want to move them. But at this point in time, and it may come down to that, but at this point in time, Bob Cushman and Chief Hafner requested not to use the Jersey barriers, and Tom Henshaw. Does anyone have any commentary on Councilman Good's new business? Anyone else have new business? Anyone have unfinished business?
Can we get, go ahead.
No, go ahead. If you had something, I didn't know.
The progress that we've been making at, 137, 217 Beer Street, is it?
Who are you asking for the progress?
Well, Councilwoman Pacheco was, not Pacheco, sorry, Councilwoman McDermott and I were discussing that, and I was just looking for an update to see if there was any follow-up from our engineers and enforcement.
Councilwoman McDermott, do you have any comments or
So the last update was the inspector went out, and this occurred during the same time of the COVID-19 kickoff, where they are working at a limited engagement, level. So I would have to refer to Tom to see if the inspection occurred.
Mr. Henshaw they're inquiring about 317 Beer Street and an inspection that was supposed to happen. Did that take place?
What was the situation? I don't have that with me tonight.
You want to we can defer it to next meeting.
That's fine. Yes, we'll defer. Sorry, there's been a lot of moving parts where there's been a lot of staffing and protocol change as well, so
I just wanted to mention that Councilwoman McDermott has been on top of it, so, and
Thank you. Anyone else have any unfinished business for tonight? Obviously, plenty of unfinished business in the municipality, but hopefully, we're talking about, pertinent, necessary, urgent, unfinished business right now. Any council members?
Oh, Mayor, I know, just to preempt Mr. Lane, who I think is listening still, the flood damage prevention ordinance, I think is going to be introduced next meeting. I saw Trevor's changes, it was back to him, and I think at best it should be with Mr. Moon just to look it over finally, but that should be introduced.
Okay. Thank you. Before we go on to the attorney's report, I just want to say thank you to Mr. Moon, who has had numerous new things tossed at him since our last meeting. So thank you for assisting in a lot of these declaration situations.
No problem. Thank you, Mayor. As far as my report, the one issue I do want to raise with the council is what we want to do as far as planning board applications and planning board meetings. As you may know, I had set up a Zoom account for the borough to utilize. Part of the goal was to allow the planning board to utilize the program in order to hold their public meetings and sort of try to get back to business as usual. I've spoken with Mr. Lexstein, the planning board attorney, and he expressed some concerns regarding proceeding with applications based on the state of emergency and the potential for challenge for any decisions that would be adopted by the planning board. I really, obviously this is sort of unprecedented, and I wanted to sort of raise this with the board to see what their thoughts were, whether we should sort of pull back and hold off on any sort of planning board applications and push until the emergency passes, or whether we should try to utilize the technologies available to us to try to get back to having public hearings and meetings and things like that.
Hey, Mark. So this is Victoria. Yeah. I actually sat on a Sustainable Jersey Zoom call where we were kind of talking about things like this, and it's my understanding that Montclair has had a planning or zoning, I forget which one it was, board meeting successfully.
Meeting powered by Amazon Time. Please enter your meeting PIN and press the pound key.
So I'm still figuring it out.
Thank you. Mark, also, I just happened to...
Join in your meeting. Press star 7 to mute or unmute.
Webinar given by one of the court recording services.
To unmute, press star 7.
And they were at least going over similar programs, I guess, as Zoom. It was allowed you to basically upload exhibits, share. They did the automated stamping. I understand Mark's hesitancy, but I think we should look into this and play it by ear. There's a lot of, at least construction seems to be still an essential business, and right. To the extent we can, I think we should try. If it becomes unworkable, then I guess we cross that bridge when we get there.
Yes.
Thank you.
To jump in, it's Victoria again. in that meeting, they were making, in the meeting, the Constitution to Montclair said that in their planning meeting, they were making decisions and even site plans and things like that, and they were able to do it using Zoom because they were able to send screens. It was almost as if we were in the meeting, kind of looking at the documents or looking at presentations that would be given in an in-person meeting.
Okay. So, thank you. Basically, I was looking to get some guidance. I agree. I tend to think that we have the technology and the ability to proceed. I just wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page in going forward. Thank you.
If there's any technology issues in the chamber, that's something that we can overcome. It's not a problem. But essentially,
you're funny, Dennis.
Well, you know what? I mean, we're talking about something we've never done before. I'm not talking about the microphones or getting video in there. I'm talking about forget about Wi-Fi. I'm talking about running an Ethernet cable for the computer or computers that are going to be running the session with the mayor and whoever else is sitting there. Who's sitting in council chambers?
The clerk, myself, and the borough administrator.
Right. So it would essentially be one Ethernet cable. It would be 4 Ethernet cables and a hub. That's it.
And I mean, beyond Ethernet cables, I honestly think that you can maybe even do this hotspot.
You can do a hotspot, but that would be.
That would be at an expense, but that's also just another option of how we could, at least for the time being, be able to be put to the chamber to handle that kind of a meeting.
Right, Mark. So, if there's technology questions or issues that you might have, just let me know. I'll help out.
Thank you, Councilman.
Just one thing to also, this is Councilwoman McDermott. I do Zoom all the time. That's what we use for our company. The recorded sessions, within all these Zoom sessions, there would be, or whatever technology you use that's video conferencing, you would have to download the chat conversations and just note that that would have to be downloaded somewhere and put into public, for public access records or planning board records. So
we can shut down the chat too, right?
Right.
Yeah, we can shut it down.
Right. I mean, well, there's some things you can do, but my point is you may have to have some downloading that the secretary would need to do for the planning board. That's all.
Yep.
We use Zoom a lot at the AAUP, and we actually record our council meetings with the Zoom for the minutes. The capability to do that is there.
Okay.
Mr. Moon, did you get your answer?
Yes, thank you.
Councilman Good, before we go on to opening to the public, I just also talking about public, the parks from earlier. The other thing that's an important note is that the state and county parks are currently at seasonal staffing, which is winter staffing, which is bare minimum. So they haven't been able to handle the influx of the crowds as well. And I can relate to that back when Hurricane Sandy happened and Sandy Hook only had their winter rangers scheduled, and they had no other staff to help dig it out. So there was a team that went every weekend and volunteered to dig it out because they weren't authorized to bring in additional staff. So there's a lot of different moving pieces as to why the county and state parks were decided on that. So I just want to point that out as well.
No, my understanding was the governor said basically like people were gathering. You don't.
No, it was both. Right. Well, they didn't have the rangers or police manpower to break it up either. That's all. I'm not saying they weren't gathering. I agree, but it was also because they didn't have staff.
No, I just want to make sure that we really shouldn't even have to. We shouldn't have to put that on the police. They have enough to do without, saying, "Hey, why are you standing there?" I'm just thinking that. No, I agree. We should take it by. As it comes, and I just wanted to put that up for everybody's tickle their brains.
Thank you. Okay, can I have a motion to open to the public, and hope if we can all, as I said earlier, keep in mind that there's still work to do this evening, and everyone has a lot of different things going on. So if we can hold commentary to, limited time, that would be fantastic. So if I have a motion to open to the public.
Dennis motion.
Second, Cooper.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Members from the public?
Elmer J. Graham Jr., 22 St. Peter's Place. A couple of things. I know I've asked this before, but once this all passes, is there any chance of Governor Murphy still coming here to Keyport for a town hall meeting?
I actually put a bug in some of my friends that work in the governor's office here to speak about it. I don't know if that'll go anywhere, but I certainly reminded them. This is Victoria.
Okay. And one more question. Is there any possible chance in the future we could, y'all could televise these meetings on cable channel 15 or on the internet, or, for people, like tonight's an example because of this pandemic and stuff like that, for people who want to hear and go to this, but unfortunately can't make the meetings.
So moving it to teleconference is definitely, in the last month, this meeting and the one before this was definitely a boost in the right direction of bringing technology standards forward in the borough. So now that we have 2 under our belt, as the commentary just took place with all the council members, we are trying to move it forward so that the next one or the one after that could possibly be video conference if we're still in a state of emergency.
Okay, maybe possibly channel. Maybe possibly put it on channel 15.
That might be a little difficult, Elmer.
We've already had guidance from our previous borough administrator that that's not an option, so there are other mechanisms that we can look into in the future, but that's not the topic right now.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else from the public wish to comment?
Mike Lane, I'd like to make a couple comments. I want to compliment the council and the OEM for the changes that were made on the promenade. I was on the promenade Saturday. People were 3 abreast, 4 or 5 deep, shoulder to shoulder, walking down the promenade. Fishermen were gathered around the catch. There was no social distancing at all. People were riding bicycles, lots of bicycles. They'd come up behind you, and you didn't even know they were coming, and they'd pass within a couple of feet of you. I thought bicycles weren't allowed on the promenade.
I'll check.
There's no signage at all. And when you're walking the promenade, now that the parking restrictions are in place, it's much, much better. But people are still riding up behind you on their bicycle, passing within a foot or 2.
I mean, they do that on the Henry Hester Trail, too, but I will check if they're allowed bicycles on the promenade, and if not, then we'll have signs put up.
Yeah. Second thing, the issue of the planning board meeting. The borough regulations require that all exhibits be available 10 days before the meeting. And some of these exhibits are very large, and the ability of people to review them is very questionable. Second is, are you going to provide laptops to people that don't have the ability to get on Zoom right now? And thirdly, how do objectors put their exhibits into the process?
So this is Councilwoman McDermott. With the Zoom, it is you can access it through any iPhone, Android phone, and you can also just call in by phone.
You can't put your exhibits in by the phone.
You can actually view documents while you are on the phone.
So I can, so I have been following a lot of the guidance that Department of Community Affairs and the state has sort of offered regarding holding public meetings, particularly in regard to public comment. It's clear to me from all of the materials that have been presented that during the state of emergency, it is perfectly appropriate to hold meetings by video conferencing, specifically including planning board and zoning boards. With that being said, there would have to be obviously some changes procedurally by like having all of the exhibits available beforehand for download. As far as people being able to submit documents for objections, we would basically allow them to submit them by email or any sort of mailing before the meeting to allow for them to be formally submitted to the record. But again, there will also be some figuring out some of the other logistics of how it will be done.
Yeah, but if those objectors' exhibits are not available until the day of the meeting, how do they get exhibited? How do they get shared with all of the people?
Well, Mr. Lane, it's like anything else. While normally, yes, we would have the luxury of being able to wait till the morning up and show up and throw exhibits in there, but because of the state of emergency, I think it's completely appropriate to set a deadline for any submission of documents on both ends, not only for any applicants as well as any objectors.
Well, right now our ordinance has already set deadlines for the applicants' documents, and they would have to be available. They have to be available 10 days before the hearing.
I think a state of emergency might supersede our ordinances. But, Mr. Lane, we could be talking, this is Councilman Good, you could be looking at maybe instead of a one-day period, it might be a two-day, somewhere where there's a break in the ability for people to, review the exhibits and then question. I mean, we're taking it as they come. We're not going to have all the answers right now because it's an unprecedented situation. But we'll have to cross that bridge when we get to it.
Can I chime in, Mike?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, what I was going to suggest, I'm going to bring us back to our old AT&T days, right? Draw up a requirements document or just a list of what your concerns are about submitting objector documents and materials and anything else that you might think would be blocked from having an online meeting. And let's see if we can solve that problem, okay, if we're going to do it. But I'd like you to try and put that together by this weekend, if possible, okay?
Well, Dennis, you know from past planning board meetings that objectors have presented fairly sophisticated documents documenting issues.
Now, Mike, I agree with that, but if that's the case, then they're going to need to do it just like everybody else. They're probably going to need to do it under the circumstances a few days ahead of time, and then we'll be able to have them hooked up. I don't want to talk solutions now. I don't want to take the meeting hostage, but there is a solution to what you're talking about.
Well, then I would suggest that the applicant's exhibits have to be available more than 10 days ahead of time so that objectors can create their exhibits.
It's something, but you know what? We can do same day upload. So
I think it's fair.
Okay.
Now,
ready to jump.
I'll share with you. My significant other, Linda, does medical conferences, teleconferences now with significant exhibits of problems with hearts, and etc. And Zoom is not capable of dealing with some of those details. And also, doctors on the conferences are not able to give their inputs in real time on Zoom. And they can give them verbally, but they can't give examples. So there's quite a change in the ability to give comments and inputs.
Well, Mike, that might just be the reason for we're going to have multi-day hearings, or it's going to be that, okay, after the applicant gets done, that there's not going to be we're going to allow talk for the objectors to review documents and ask questions. So, again, we haven't really gotten to that point yet, so when we see where we're going, and,
Mr. Good, Matt, I think you've hit on a very important issue. You're probably going to have multi-day hearings with the applicant giving his input and then the objectors having a second hearing to give theirs.
And that might be the solution to it.
Mr. Lane, do you have anything else?
No, that's what I had. Thank you very much.
No problem. Anyone else from the public wish to speak? Have a motion to close to the public?
Motion made.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 I have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion adjourned, Sheridan.
Second, Pacheco.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Stay safe, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye, thank you.
Good night, y'all. Have a good night.
Good night.